This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Forging Table. The mission of Undaunted.Life is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. At the Forging Table, you'll see a group of regular guys forging resilience by digging in spiritual resilience, if you're wondering which one, by digging into God's Word, and we're welcoming all of you to come along on that journey with us out of order. We're going Matt, we're going Winkler, we're going Browning. I don't have anything funny at the beginning. Does anybody have anything funny? Because I kind of forgot. Because I just ate a bunch of pizza, and that's all I can think about is how that's going to be settling over the next 45 minutes.
I think it is funny that people think LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time. I know that we were talking about athletes,
Does anyone at this table think that LeBron James is the best basketball player ever?
No, absolutely not.
No. I mean, there's certain things that should be debated. That
is there confidence that if I said, name the greatest basketball player of all time in 3, 2, 1, Michael Jordan? Okay, just wanted to make sure that we were all in the same place. The debate actually does become second. Who's the second best player of all time?
Oh.
Because you got people that automatically go
Wilt.
LeBron.
Magic.
You got Wilt. You got Bill Russell people. You got
Magic.
Larry Bird people.
Kobe.
I'm Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson. The Kobe one is interesting because someone made a good point. They're like, how many MVPs does Kobe have? I think he only had one. And so it's like he was only the best player in the league once, like in his entire career. And I was like, that's actually a pretty compelling point.
He won a lot of rings with Shaq.
Right. He won 3 with Shaq and 2 with Powell.
Who would you say, Jake? Was it second?
Magic Johnson.
Magic. That's a good pick. What about you, Eric?
Wilt.
I always say the reason I always put Magic as number 2, he got more championships than Bird. Otherwise, I'd have Bird at 2.
Oh, Bird.
But the reason I say that Magic over Bird is he's got more rings, and those two were slugging it out all through the 80s. And Magic probably would have won more rings had it, number 1, not been for AIDS. But number 2, he also had this guy that he ran into named Michael Jordan, who also kind of knocked him out as well because Michael's first championship was against the Lakers.
What a great time in basketball history. Oh, my gosh.
Well, and Bad Boy Pistons.
Bad Boy Pistons.
Oh,
They had 2 years of just dominating and then got really pissy with the Bulls.
Yeah.
I could see Magic Johnson. Wilt's a good one, too. I don't know who
So a lot of people will say Bill Russell, but the problem is there were 8 teams, I think, in the NBA when Bill Russell was winning championships. And so it's not saying that he's not great. It's just like, well, you're playing the same 8 teams. Kind of like all the Yankees championships. It's like they won the majority of their championships.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Stop it. Stop it. There was like, winning. How many World Series did the Yankees win where the playoffs were the World Series? So as long as you won the pennant, you got to go straight to the World Series. Now all of a sudden they can't win a World Series in decades. It's
like Notre Dame. They're like, we had the best teams ever. Like, man, you didn't play anybody. You literally played 2 teams.
Yeah, you beat Army 5-2 in football somehow.
I don't know. I don't know.
Second best player? Okay, all right. Life's the one that you got to put the second on the GOAT list. All right, who's the second GOAT? So we've got Magic Johnson, Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh man, I would. Yeah, I'd probably have to go with Wilt.
You'd have Wilt over Kareem? Kareem never gets the play, man, but Kareem actually played for a very long time.
Kareem got plenty of play, apparently. So
no, Wilt got plenty of play.
Yeah, Wilt was
okay.
How many kids?
Wilt was the one.
Wilt's the guy.
Kareem played for like 25 years, won several rings with Magic, but then also until LeBron recently passed him, was the all-time point scorer leader. I mean, they actually did change the rules. They outlawed the dunk because Kareem was just dunking over everybody.
Well, I mean, Kareem had 6 NBA championships, Wilt only 2. He played 20 seasons versus 14 for Wilt. He played in 18 playoffs versus 13 for Wilt. All-Star games, 19. Man.
And I'm saying all this, Kareem's still not my number 2 because Kareem still also played in that time frame where there just wasn't a lot of teams. There wasn't a lot of competition.
Yeah, a lot of centers were 5'2" white guys. So
I would have been a center in the 1970s.
You would have dominated.
So as much as I don't like...
I'd have gotten out of breath running to half court.
Pistol Pete Maravich. Guy was unbelievable.
As much as I don't like him, I would probably have to put LeBron number 2 on the GOAT list. With all of his foibles, with the complaining and the going from team to team and the flopping and all this kind of stuff.
Of each book that he has.
Yeah, reading one page of 70 different books. Just because...
You should have him on the forging table. I'm sure he would be riveting.
Yeah, I bet.
Read the first 3 sentences of each chapter.
Because it's like, yes, he's won. Like, I don't want to put him there, but it's just like, he's not a killer, right? So Bird was a killer. Like, Kobe was a killer. LeBron's not a killer, but he was great.
I can't put him there because he's lost more finals than he's won.
Also true. Because the only one you can give him a pass for was when he was like 14 years old and they went up against the Spurs.
Right.
Right. And so like the Eastern Conference was basically an AAU tournament. And then they got there and then they got swept by the Spurs. But the rest of them, like they were a Chris Bosh rebound and a Ray Allen prayer 3 from losing 3 of 4 in Miami.
Yes. I mean, they put together they got the
Avengers out there in their
super duper team out in Miami because, you could say this first Celtics squad with Garnett, Allen, and Pierce was like the original super team, but that was all done through trades and everything else. This was just 3 guys deciding to sign at the same time whenever they expanded the cap. I can get real cap nerdy. I won't. But they all just decided to join the same squad, and then they lost to the Mavs.
Mavs first year.
They beat the Thunder, who were probably a year or two too early.
Yeah.
And then they
beat the Spurs.
They beat the Spurs.
And they got destroyed by the Spurs.
That's right. And the Spurs win that they had, they were this close to, and for those listening, my fingers are really close together.
Yeah, game 6.
But they were, game 6. I mean, they were like literally a Chris Bosh rebound and a Ray Allen 3 from losing that one.
Lost in all this is Dirk Nowitzki. When the Mavs won the championship, the route that the Mavs went through to win that championship. So they obviously beat, the big 3 Heat. In the conference finals, they beat the James Harden, Russell Westbrook, KD Thunder. This round before that, they had swept Kobe and Powell's Lakers coming off of a championship. And in the first round, they beat like the Trailblazers, and that was like Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah.
And
pre-knee problems, Brandon Roy was really good.
Dirk, the 2011 Dirk run was insane. Because it was literally
maybe the greatest run in the history of the playoffs.
Yes. I mean, and I say that as someone who despises the Mavs, but Dirk's run in 2011, because who was the second best player on that team?
Sean Marion.
Yeah. Or
Jason Terry.
Tyson Chandler.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not exactly talking about.
Not complete game changers.
No.
There's no Pippen on that team.
They're all role players. They're all role players.
He did bury a lot of people. And just as Dirk buried people, we're going to talk about the burial of Sarah. Wow. So I would love to get into that.
I was waiting for the transition. This entire time I've been, Matt, come on, transition. I was about to do a hard transition. Like, hey, speaking of AIDS, Sarah's dead. It's a Magic Johnson joke. It's a Magic Johnson joke, guys. Wow. So, hey, Matt, since you had the beautiful velvety transition, how about you keep it going? You're going to read all of chapter 23.
Before I go, I'm changing my pick to Magic Johnson. I'm with Jake now. I think he makes a good argument. I
think Kareem is a pretty decent argument. The problem is the competition, the level of competition. Like there. Well, here's the thing. Sorry. Wait.
Segway's done.
You're building a basketball team.
I just derailed this. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's you're building a basketball team, and this team has to win one game to save your life. Okay.
In what era?
Enough. Like. We don't have to worry about era. Everything else is different.
Jeez,
like
Mr. Nuance.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Captain Gray area over there. So you got to pick one guy. Yeah. Don't even hit the timer now at this point. You're fired like Zach Todd's fired. Okay. You have to pick one center to be on your team. You're picking a starting lineup, and this starting lineup has got to win a game to save your life. Because I know who I'm picking, and he has not been named yet.
Yeah, I know who I would pick, and he's not been named
3,
yet either.
2, 1,
Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal. Exactly.
Yeah.
No one's taking Wilt. Ain't nobody taking Kareem. No one's taking Bill Russell. We're taking
you're taking
the Diesel.
you're taking Prime Shaq, a.k.a. Shazam, a.k.a. Diesel.
Hey, the big cactus.
Yeah.
The big shamrock.
A.k.a. Shaq Fu.
Yeah.
Man.
Shaq Fu.
He had a lot of names, not unlike our God, who went by a lot of names. And so let's get into that.
Okay, Matt. All right. We've done this. We've done this enough. You got us, off on the tangent.
Right.
Now we're back here. So all of Genesis 23.
I'm reading all of Genesis 23. Okay,
Yes, so.
Here we go. Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is, Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham rose up from before his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and a foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, Hear us, my lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb to hinder you from burying your dead. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land. And he said to them, If you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat me for Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field for the full price. Let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites, Of all who went in at the gate of his city, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the sight of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, and he said to Ephron, In the hearing of the people of the land, but if you will, hear me. I give the price of the field, accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, My lord, listen to me, a piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Bury your dead. Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weights current among the merchants. So the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it and all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area, was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites. Before all who went into the gate of his city after this, into the city, sorry. I didn't see the period there. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, west of Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that is in it were made over to Abraham as property for a burying place of the Hittites.
Thanks, Matt.
The Hittites.
Thanks, Matt. So Sarah, only gal in the Bible to have her age, death, and burial mentioned. So that's either significant or not significant. I happen to believe that it's significant, that we only get that level. It's probably because the New Testament writers were all members of the patriarchy. And so at least that's what I've been reliably informed by purple-haired, nose-ringed morons on college campuses. But yeah, let's talk about Sarah's death and burial and anything that you guys want to hit on chapter 23.
Well, the significance of Sarah bringing Isaac into the world, the child of promise. I mean, I think there is some reverence here that's being paid to her in that she, like the mentioning of her, age and her death and the stuff that Abraham goes through to get a burial place for her. I don't think we should miss that.
Yeah, and she's mentioned at least two more times in the Bible. Here's one: 1 Peter 3:5-6 says, "For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves by submitting themselves to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And you are her children if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening." So, compare that to Mary. I don't think she's mentioned, anywhere else. So there's a lot of weight put on Sarah. I think she's mentioned again in Hebrews 11, Hall of Faith.
Yeah.
That's the second time you mentioned the Hall of Faith. Can you actually bring up the Hall of Faith, and so we can actually have those names?
Yeah.
While we do that, but anything else on that?
I actually, ironically, the accountant got really focused in on the 400 shekels
Nerd.
silver. So just to kind of give some context here, that's the equivalent of about 7.25 pounds of silver. You compare that to some of the other land purchases noted in the Bible. Omri bought the site of Samaria for 6,000 shekels in 1 Kings. David bought the site of the temple for 600 gold shekels in 1 Chronicles. The threshing floor itself fetched 50 shekels. That's from 2 Samuel. Jeremiah bought property at a greatly deflated price of 17 shekels. So Abraham's price here is more than likely pretty exorbitant for what he was purchasing. which is interesting because you have Ephron who's like, just take the land. He just wants to give it as a gift. And Abraham's like, no, I'm going to buy it from you. And why would he do that? You would think, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? He's just going to give you the land, and yet you're going to give him this exorbitant price to purchase this land. And if you kind of go back to like, well, where does Abraham even get this funding? Is that some of the Abimelech funding that he got in restitution for Sarah itself? So you kind of see that coming full circle, and that Sarah's death and her resting place essentially could almost be looked at as it being financed by the indiscretion that was made by Abraham with Abimelech, but then turns around and makes sure he purchases this land so that any future heirs of Ephron could not come back and say, yeah, I want that back. It's like, nope, ownership has been transferred. It was sold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it had been promised to him, right? But then he also purchased that, right?
And even if he bought it at a discount, they could come back and be like, no, it wasn't enough.
Well, I was looking at that too, kind of as to the, like how what's culturally, how did this thing go down? Because it's interesting how it was spelled out there. The guy, he's like, I'd like to have this land. Abraham's like, I'd like to have this land. And he's like, I will give it to you. What I understand is that culturally that is how you were supposed to start negotiation. The person that had the land was supposed to say, I'll give it to you. He's not really going to give it to you. Right. That's just culturally how you do it. And then you come back and he says, no, I want to buy it from you. And then he says, okay. And then he names a price. And typically the price is high. It's like a starting price that's exorbitant high. And then you negotiate from there. But Abraham was like, all right,
done.
I'm in.
Yeah. So I think one of the other interesting points here to talk about is also the fact that so think about 400 shekels. Okay. A laborer at this time, because I want to go back to the point that this is an exorbitant price, and Abraham's basically just securing all future claims to this potential land from Ephron's descendants. Back then, a laborer would make, on average, 10 shekels a year. So it would literally take him a lifetime to be able to purchase that, assuming that you live long enough, because, it's 10 shekels a year, but it's also those 10 shekels, you got to also pay for other things. So how long is it going to take you to save up 400 to purchase that? And again, going back to, well, how did Abraham get that much? And, again,
he sold drugs.
I just think it's,
don't tell me you didn't think it.
Well, I mean, in a sense, he kind of sold his wife. I mean, in a sense, gave her to Abimelech. It's my sister. And then he was like, here's 1,000 shekels. Like, sorry about that. Please forgive me. I mean, it's hard not to fathom that at least some of these 400 shekels were obtained through that initial indiscretion.
Right. Anything else on Genesis 23? Before we move on?
Ooh.
Is that a yes, or is that like a you got gas? Or
I may have a little bit of both.
Oh, wow.
Well,
no, I like the idea. Here's what I wrote down. It said Jesus has all rights because he created all things. And then I put down, but he also has possession because he purchased it with blood. So like we've been twice owned by Christ, both once through creation and then once because he purchased us through his blood. So if we're trying to tie in a little bit to this purchase of the land, that's one thing we can look back at, because, Abraham received this land through promise, but he also purchased the land and has a deed on it.
Yeah. When you mentioned this is still around earlier. Yeah. So where?
Yeah. It's in Hebron, the West Bank. There's a big, building around it now. Of course, the cave, and that's where all the patriarchs are buried.
So Abraham,
Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. I don't know. Sarah. Yes, of course. Yeah. And I may be wrong. I mean, there's more of those too. I could pull it up, but I don't have memorized. So
yeah, this gets mentioned quite a few times, even in Genesis, because Jacob asks Joseph to swear to take him back when he dies, and then I'm pretty sure Joseph requests to be taken back there when he dies. So It's obviously a significant place and still so. And didn't you say it's the second holiest?
I believe so. I mean, I could be
Some
wrong.
people say it's the second holiest site.
Okay. Very good. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into Genesis 24. Now, Genesis 24 is rather lengthy, and so I thought it would be unfair to have one of you lovely gentlemen read it. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to switch off every paragraph, and we are going to go, and we're going to start clockwise. I'll start us off, and then we'll go Jake, and then we'll go Matt. Most of the paragraphs are roughly the same. Some are rather short. And so I'm reading ESV. Jake is ESV. Matt, ESV. Eric.
Same.
Very good. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get in. We're going to talk about Isaac and Rebekah. Genesis 24, starting in verse 1. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from my daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac. The servant said to him, perhaps a woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? Abraham said to him, see to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your offspring I will give this land, he will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and swore to him concerning this matter.
Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and he went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today, and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman, to whom I shall say, please let down your jar that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels, let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master.
Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. The young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, please give me a little water to drink from your jar. She said, drink, my lord. And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also, until they have finished drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water. And she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not.
When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels and said, please tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? She said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. She added, we have plenty of both straw and fodder and room to spend the night. The man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord and said, blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman. Then the young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things.
Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. Laban ran out toward the man to the spring. As soon as he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms and heard the words of Rebekah his sister, thus the man spoke to me, he went to the man. And behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man came to the house and unharnessed the camels and gave straw and fodder to the camels, and there was water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then food was set before him to eat. But he said, I will not eat until I have said what I have to say. He said, speak on.
So he said, I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become great. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male servants and female servants, camels and donkeys, And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and to him he has given all that he has. My master made me swear, saying, you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell. But you shall go to my father's house and to my clan and take a wife for my son. I said to my master, perhaps the woman will not follow me. But he said, no. He said to me, the Lord before whom I have walked will send his angel with you and prosper your way. You shall take a wife for my son from my clan and from my father's house. Then you will be free from my oath when you come to my clan, and if they will not give her to you, you will be free from my oath.
I came today to the spring and said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, if now you are prospering the way that I go, behold, I am standing by the spring of water. Let the virgin who comes out to draw water, to whom I shall say, please give me a little water from your jar to drink, and who will say to me, drink, and I will draw for your camels also. Let her be the woman whom the Lord has appointed for my master's son.
Before I had finished speaking in my heart, behold, Rebekah came out with her water jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the spring and drew water. I said to her, please let me drink. She quickly let down her jar from her shoulder and said, drink, and I will give your camels drink also. So I drank, and she gave the camels drink also. Then I asked her, whose daughter are you? She said, the daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him. So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her arm. Then I bowed my head and worshipped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master, Abraham, who had led me to the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. Now then, if you're going to show steadfast love and faithfulness to my master, tell me. If not, tell me, that I might turn to the right hand or to the left.
Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing has come from the Lord. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord had spoken.
When Abraham's servant heard their words, he bowed himself to the earth before the Lord. And the servant brought out jewelry of silver and of gold and garments and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave to her brother and to her mother costly ornaments. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. When they arose in the morning, he said, send me away to my master. Her brother and her mother said, let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days. After that, she may go. But he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. They said, let us call the young woman and ask her. And they called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? She said, I will go. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him.
Then Rebekah and her young women arose and rode on the camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way.
Now Isaac had returned from Beer-Lahai-roi and was dwelling in the Negeb. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and said to the servant, who is that man walking the field to meet us? The servant said, it is my master. So she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things he had done. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death.
Okay, very good. Well, first time for everything. That's the first time we did a team reading of a very, very long chapter. So got to be honest, I was a little bit concerned about this chapter, but Jake and I actually talked about it in Sunday school because it's not called ABF. It's not called Adult Bible Fellowship because that would be stupid. So in our Sunday school class this morning, we were talking about Genesis 24, and you had a very interesting kind of thought experiment as it pertained to the scripture. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting here. One of the first things the servant does is he's asking for a sign from God. Okay. And I think all of us could probably point to a time in our lives where we go, you pray and you're just, if you will just show me a sign, if you will just show me a sign. And honestly, I think we would have a very, very difficult time pointing that out, which would mean, obviously this person you would think would have a difficult time pointing out like, well, okay, I asked her for a drink and then she offered to water the camels. Okay. But you need to understand what task he's asking, because a camel that has gone a few days without water can drink as much as 25 gallons of water. Ancient jars used for drawing water usually held no more than 3 gallons. In other words, the offer, what he's asking here, would have involved perhaps 80 to 100 drawings from the well. So it would have been like what she's doing. And keep in mind, this is not something where she's like, he's asking for a drink and then he says, oh, and water my camels. She's offered to water the camels. And so this is such a clear sign, because there's no way that anyone would offer to water, to do 80 to 100 drawings from a well over hours at a time. No one else would offer that except for someone who has been placed there by God to do so. So it was such an obvious sign. And I think that there's, I'm going to point out to another interesting, historical sign. In 1429, the prince, who was later to be crowned Charles VII of France, was told that a teenage girl had reportedly received messages from saints urging her to support his kingship and drive the English out of France. After he agreed to give her an audience, he decided to conduct a test. He had someone else sit on his throne while he himself stood among the courtiers in attendance. He thought if the girl were receiving supernatural guidance, she would immediately detect the imposter and pick him out in a crowd, though they had never met. He was impressed when the girl walked into the throne room and after only a minute of indecision, turned away from the throne, strode up to him and bowed before him. He took this as a divine sign that the girl, Joan of Arc, had been chosen by God to liberate France. Okay. Now, you don't have to really know the story. I think most of us know the story of Joan of Arc and what happened there. The English were driven out of France. She met a pretty dreadful end. And she did have some initial success, and the Dauphin was crowned the king in the wake of her success, but it was short-lived. And so it would be, to him, he's looking for this same type of sign, right? Was she truly divinely inspired? If she is, then she would know to find me in the crowd. But it's so hard to kind of point to say, okay, here's this thing I think I can point to that this is a clear sign from God that this is what I'm supposed to do. I think it's a lot easier to see the fingerprints of God after you've been through stuff. So you can, and I say the fingerprints because those are left behind. It's stuff that's happened. You could see his hands in it. It's like, you know what? I went through this scenario, and then later on, I can actually look back on that and go, there's no way I would have gotten through that without God. So I can see his fingerprints all over that. So I think it's interesting here because he's asking for such an outlandish sign. And I think that would be kind of an interesting experiment for all of us to do, is like when you pray and you are asking for these signs, how outlandish are you? Because nothing's outside the scope of what God can do. How outlandish are you being? Anyways, so I think there's probably a discussion around signs and I have some stories about some personal stuff that if we have time, I can share, but
it seems like there should be caution thrown to the wind here on signs, because some people will take that too far. Mm-hmm. They'll be seeing images in the clouds and then be like, well, that's clearly a sign and I should go do this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So I do think there's some shortfalls for folks on that, right?
Well, you can kind of look at it it's almost like Oracle type thinking. Okay. Like I consult the Oracle and they say, here's the sign I'm seeing, and this is what you're supposed to go do. That kind of puts God in a corner, right? It's like, I'm trying to decide this one thing. The alternative would be to kind of leave matters open-ended and to simply look for God's hand in circumstances as he sovereignly works them out. Okay. So again, I'm not saying that there won't be any signs from God, but I think that they're so hard to see and can be, I think, so unclear that I think until you actually go through things, and I want to talk about the open-ended thing, until you go through those instances, And you can kind of see how God's, in his sovereignty, has worked through those instances, and you can see his fingerprints all over what happened. I think that's whenever it makes things a little clearer. It's that whole footprints in the sand. There was two sets of footprints, and then I only see one. And that's because I was carrying you.
I remember being a really immature believer that was struggling with just the omnipresence of God. And this is going to sound so silly, and I've got to follow up on it, but and I'm driving, and I have had the hiccups for like 45 minutes. It's super annoying. And I just remember going, you know what, God, I know you literally can do anything. Can you take away my hiccups for me right now? And then literally they stopped immediately. And could I point that, is that a miracle? I don't know, not necessarily.
Heck yeah, it is.
But I mean, they went away, and I was like, cool, that was awesome. But it also didn't take that and go, maybe I should do that next time I have hiccups, and people in the car and be like, check this out. God, take away my hiccups. I didn't take it like that. Mm-hmm. Now, later on, I was having an issue with some anger, and literally to the point where I felt like I could feel the presence of demons, like literally oppressing me. And I do remember like very fervently praying one night. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is it. I can't do this. It's overwhelming. And I asked for that to be removed. And then I went to sleep. And I remember waking up and feeling like a weight of 1,000 pounds had been just taken off of me. And it was obvious in that moment that God had done something miraculous in my life, and not really show me a sign as much as just answered prayer. So I don't know where I was going with that, other than just those are my two real basic, like very immature experience, and then maybe a little bit more mature experience with God.
Yeah, faith is built in the rearview mirror. I think that's why it's important to write out our prayers, and then come back to those and write how God has answered those prayers, because then we can go back and look at how those have unfolded, and those can be our kind of modern day standing stones. Yeah, I think those are all really cool examples.
Well, I think Matt, there's a difference between what you're describing, which is what Jake said, which is fingerprints. Yeah. So you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. But then there's also the idea of being expectant for signs. Mm-hmm. Like I'm expecting God to show me something.
Sure.
And what I mentioned this morning, Jake, is kind of what Joby has said. It's about at certain points you have to pray, guess, go. Mm. So I was on a couple of coaching calls with some guys in our Dominion program here recently, and we were talking about, I was trying to explain to them the concept of being over the X, because some of these guys are, in different places in their career. And the concept of being over the X is like, if you're in a military plane and you're dropping a payload, let's just say it's a bomb over an enemy place, there's an X to where that means you're exactly where you're supposed to be. If you're a click or two away from that spot, the payload's not going to go where it needs to go, right? So, but when you're over the X, you're exactly where God has you, exactly where you should be. And, I remember a few years ago, there was a guy that was basically trying to get me to come to work for him. And I was like, bro, I'm over the X when it comes to Undaunted.Life. This is, before we became the #1 show for men, Christian men. And this was, before Dominion and before any of that. I was like, no, I'm over the X. I'm exactly where I need to be. And I could tell it wasn't exactly landing with them, no pun intended. But what I basically said is like, hey, have you ever tried to navigate a trail with a crappy flashlight? And like, even if you haven't, you can at least understand what that looks like. So you got this crappy flashlight, maybe it's going dead, or it's just a bad flashlight. And so when you point it down the trail, you can tell it's a trail. You could surmise, okay, I think it's going to bend to the left up here. Okay, that's a bush or a bear, not quite sure. Like you're looking out in the distance. But if you point it at your feet, you can take the very next step with full confidence, right? And so that's one of the things I tell people with God is it's like, what is it? Was it a Tozer or somebody where it's like, it's obedience in the same direction, right? Over time.
Ferguson.
Like, yeah, it's something like that. So you're going in the same direction, but it's like the word is a lamp unto our feet, but we want it to be a floodlight. We want to be able to see the entire pathway as we go forward. Right. So that's my personal concern. And we talked about a little bit this morning about waiting for signs. And the sign is always from people, it's never about what's right next step. They always want a sign about what the end of the trail looks like. It's like, bro, you got a crappy flashlight. Just like the end of the trail, you'll get there when you get there kind of thing.
Little wins in the right direction.
Right.
That's it. And I do like I think if you're looking for signs in terms of long-term direction, you're not going to get those. I'm sorry. I think the signs again, I think if you were going to, and I'll share one story. So when my mom passed away, I remember just being out. It was rainy, and I was just by myself and was praying, and I went 2 weeks after she passed. I was just in unbearable grief. And I remember just saying, like, I just want to know that she's with you, because faith was not something that was super promoted in our home, and was just so like, I was like, I know she believed, but I don't know that she really believed. And so I was just like, God, I just want to know, like, just give me some sort of sign, like, just that she's with you, that she's okay. And like right around that time, a cricket just came up and started chirping in the rain. I don't know if you guys know this, but they don't do that. And so I don't know if that was a sign. I've taken it as such. And I think a lot of times maybe that we just have these things that it could have been a sign, and maybe I'm just clinging to it. I don't know. But I've decided that it's like, no, this is something that was meaningful to me in that moment. That it's like, if this is true, if that really was a sign from God, that my mom's there with him and happier than I can ever possibly fathom, I'm going to take it.
Right.
I'm going to take it. Yeah. If it's not true, then fine, I'll find out later.
Sure.
Well, I think to Kyle's earlier point, I think we can become paralyzed with the weight of signs, and we can pray for signs. And most of the time when that happens, I would say that we're paralyzed because we're praying in generalities or in like the long-term outlook of our life. And so we are looking for this, like, if I'm looking at a career change, or I'm looking at the college to go to, or whatever, the girl I'm going to marry. It's like we want the finished product. And so I think we can get paralyzed. And I think, what did you say earlier? Pray, guess, go. Pray, guess, go. Yeah. And I think looking back to Nehemiah, what a perfect example that book is of pray. I mean, he prayed, he knew, and then he went. Like he was the epitome of, I know this is God. I know God is in the work, but I also know that God expects me to be a part of the work. And so we shouldn't get paralyzed and stop. And because if you're not moving forward, like, you're moving backwards, and I think you're in danger of being in sin by not acting at all, because you're paralyzed looking for this grandiose vision or sign from God. And I think God's sometimes like, take a step. Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole thing of, there's the old, I guess it's a joke. I don't really know if that would be the right way to phrase it, but the guy standing on the roof and with the flood waters rising, and he's standing on the roof, and they send a car through, and they said, hey, there's a big storm coming. Roads are going to flood. We got to evacuate you. Let's get you out of here. And he's like, nope, God's going to save me. Waters start rising. Boat comes by. Hey, get on the boat. You got to get out of here. Nope, God's going to save me. He's going to save me. Waters rise even further to the point that boats can't even come get him, and a helicopter comes by, and he's like, all right, we got to get you out of here. We're evacuating. And he's like, nope, God's going to save me. Waters rise up even further, envelop him. He drowns. He dies. He goes to heaven, gets in front of God, and he says, why didn't you save me? I asked you, he goes, I sent a car, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. It's like, at some point, what are you looking for?
You got to do something.
That's right.
Well, guys, as we wrap up our discussion of Genesis 23 and 24, to put a bow on this whole basketball thing. Now we can't spend a whole lot of time on this because we got to get out of here, and there's been a couple of weird little edit things in this episode already. You've got to give me your starting five and your sixth man. Okay? This is the team that they got to win a game. It doesn't matter who the other team is, right? So don't get into this team's better at defense in the blah, blah, blah system. Nope. Same head coach, same stadium, same crowd, all that. A starting five and a sixth man, they've got to win this game for you to survive. Do y'all want me to go first or last? Because I already know mine. I wrote it down.
I already know mine.
I don't want to influence it. You said you already know yours?
I already know mine.
Okay, so you go ahead and give me yours. Browning's working on his, and Matt, we'll see. So give me your starting five. Start with the one.
Okay, 1 would be Magic.
Okay.
2 would be Jordan. 3, I would actually have Kobe play the 3 because he could. 4 would be Bird playing power forward. 5 would be Shaq.
And who's your sixth man?
And my sixth man, mainly because I honestly, it would probably be LeBron. I hate
You
that,
said it.
though.
You already said it. All right. Let's go, Matt. Give us your starting five. Matt, a fantastic basketball player. I'm sure you've thought about this before. Start with the 1. This team's got to win or you die.
Okay, so I think I would go Magic Johnson, number 1, one of the greatest point guards of all time, if not the greatest. Michael Jordan, number 2, the greatest basketball player of all time. I would go Larry Bird at number 3. I would go, I'd probably go Kareem at the 4 and Shaq at the 5.
Twin Towers.
Like you have to deal with the Twin Towers.
Right.
And if you
Spacing's
double,
a problem.
If you double anybody on that team,
Problem. And who's sixth man?
sixth man, oh goodness.
It's another center.
No, I would probably go. I'm a homer here, so I'll go with Isaiah Thomas as the sixth man.
Ooh, that's not bad.
Okay.
That.
All right. Browning.
All right, I got Jordan 1, Bird 2, Kareem, then Magic, then Shaq. And
Wait. So your Jordan's playing point guard?
No. I
He
just put 5 people.
No. Who's your point guard?
Magic.
Okay. Your shooting guard.
Jordan,
Small forward.
Bird,
Power forward.
Kareem,
Center.
Shaq,
Sixth man.
Durant.
Oh,
Yuck.
Cupcakes.
Gross.
cupcakes. You can't be the cupcakes with Jordan.
Wait, was our starting 5 the same?
No.
I have no idea.
It actually was.
Oh, wait, was
Was
it?
it?
Yeah, I thought it sounded the same.
Well, I got good news for you. All 3 of you are wrong. You're all going to die because my team is going to beat all those teams, okay?
is it the Monstars?
Just name off the Monstars. All right. So you got to think. We got a new game here. And so
Bunny.
on a lot of y'all's teams, a lot of size, a lot of ball hogging, not a whole lot of shooting. Steph at the 1.
I mean, that's a good pick.
MJ at the 2. So I think MJ's on everybody's team at the 2. I'm taking Bird at the 3. Mm-hmm. And I'm shocked that none of y'all picked the big fundamental. Timmy Duncan, the best power forward
I actually thought about that.
ever at the 4.
Yeah.
Playing small.
Ever at the 4. Shaq at the 5. Is Shaq our starting center for everybody?
Yeah, that's consensus.
And my first guy off the bench, give me the Mamba. Give me Kobe coming off the bench. Isaiah Thomas can go cry in the corner.
Well,
all
okay.
that.
My
No.
team would destroy y'all's.
No chance.
All those are good teams.
Got to have some shooting. Got to have some scoring.
So
I
what
think.
do you do though? Because really, it comes down to the differences. Does Isaiah Thomas beat Kobe in a one-on-one situation? Because a lot of those guys are the same. The answer is no to that. Obviously,
My issue with both of your teams, Kareem and Shaq play by the basket. And you are taking away your best player's strength, which is getting
Driving
to
to
the
the
basket.
basket.
Michael Jordan is going to get to the basket. That's his biggest strength. And you got 2 lane cloggers.
So if I put Durant in there and then bring Kareem off the bench, you okay with that?
If
You could put Durant at
that
the
would
4.
work. That would work.
But then Timmy Duncan on my team is just going to eat Kevin Durant up from that little elbow, hit him with that big fundamental. I'm telling y'all, no Tim Duncan love.
okay. Let me.
Best power forward ever.
I would put him at the 5.
I want to redo. I want Chauncey Billups. I want Meta World Peace.
Meta world.
Rashid,
Dennis Rodman, maybe it's all getting a big
I want
fight.
Jermaine O'Neal. I want Ben Wallace.
Yeah.
And I want Rashid Wallace.
You want
This
the 19. You want the 2001 Pistons.
Yeah, this team wouldn't win.
did not play for the Pistons.
This team
Okay.
wouldn't beat the Suns on a Tuesday. But okay, yeah, hopefully
did
your
fight the
life's on the line.
Pistons. He did fight the Pistons.
Ron Artest was on the Pacers whenever
If
that
my
went down.
life's on the line, yes, that's probably not the team I'm going to pick. But speaking of your life being on the line, if you have not put your faith in the Lord, our Savior, Jesus Christ, your life is on the line.
And it doesn't matter who you put out there.
And it does not matter who you put out there. But if you are in Christ, You have salvation in the Lord on the day of judgment.
I'm pretty sure that Matt just picked Jesus as his point guard.
Bam! Jesus at the one. Jesus at the one. That was actually the answer. Jesus is playing all 5 spots, guys. But we're going to have to leave it there. Come back here next week where we're going to be digging into just Genesis 25. So Genesis 25, read Genesis 25 before next week. And before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. The Logos Bible software is the best Bible software on planet Earth. Don't get it at full price. Get it at a discount. You can check that out in the show notes. Also, Crossway, we got with them to do a forging table starter set. There's 5 incredible books that you can get at 50% off. Check out all the instructions in the show notes. And then also, guys, we are a donation-based ministry, so the only way that we're able to do this is by partnering with guys like you that have partnered with us to donate on a monthly basis so that we can continue to equip men around the globe to push back darkness. Please consider doing so. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.